Hi, welcome. We're so glad you're here with us. We're doing a new project called Conversations with Friends. And each time we record, we just bring in different people for a conversation because we want you to know what it's like here at the Radiance Center. So people call me Spirit. This is Tobias. This is Cody. And this is Brooklyn. No, that won't help. So, we're having a conversation today about work. And do we enjoy work? Are we afraid of work? Is work something that we can fail at? Have we been manipulated by work? And so I'm just opening it for anybody to talk. And I'm ready. Okay.
Well, it's good timing for me. I've been unemployed the last few months. And normally I love having a job. I love working. I've always gotten like a sense of self and a sense of identity from being a hard worker. And so during times where I'm not employed, I find I get really restless and really agitated and very, so these last few months, as I've chosen to be unemployed,
That's a brave choice.
It's been good for me to let go of that sense of self-worth coming from work, and still being productive, but also being at peace with the opposite, and so it's been good for me.
Wow, thank you.
That way I can choose to work out of, and I know that a lot of times you're not given the flexibility or the circumstances to be able to make that choice, so I'm really grateful for it, but that way when I choose to work, it's just out of inspiration and love, and not out of fear or lack of identity.
And so she works here part of the time, not just is not the right word, but as a volunteer, she shows up and does whatever needs to be done and supports me and supports the Radiance Center, and I am so grateful.
It's been so fun.
Okay. You, Maria?
Yeah, I'm reminded through Brooklyn's sharing of what you would normally say about rest.
Yeah.
And I know the topic that we're speaking of is work, but the topic that I am hearing inside, it's not just a different topic, it's the opposite end of this topic. Where we work and work is important, but all motion comes from rest.
Yes.
And how important it is to take this time, like you said, Brooklyn, of just being unemployed for a period of time, not necessarily putting ourselves in a position where we have to work or we have to do this thing, and resting enough to hear what it is we're actually inspired to do.
Well, so we should do a recording sometime about stillness and rest. But I'll give you an example of that now, which is that I was in silence for, 13 months or so. And it was wonderful. It wasn't like I had to try to be in silence. But I broke the rules, of course, and so on Saturday mornings, I talk to my grown-up kids and my grandkids on the phone and that kind of thing. But then when I came out of silence, the hard work was learning to talk again. And the reason that's true is because I was so used to everything being between me and God. And so I thought, because I started teaching a class 5 days a week, and so I thought that I would have to say to my students, I'm going to take 2 weeks off and be in stillness. But instead, I didn't have to do that. What I had to do was learn to be in stillness even when I was talking.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I want to go back to your thing about work, which is there's a way of working that is not work.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what you're guided to do. And so one of the things I want people to know about work is that it can be so fulfilling, so exactly what you should be doing. Okay.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I want to point out, I think that it makes sense to talk about rest. It makes sense to talk about rest while we're talking about work. Understanding the negative or the opposite of something helps us understand.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah.
Rest is like recharging to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I've been saying, there's different kinds of work. Like there's work that you really want to do, you just feel guided to do. But then there's work like, I need to cook breakfast for 20 kids.
Right.
And so work is partly what has to be done and partly what wants to be done.
And the balance of that.
Yes, and how I found that even maybe I didn't want to make breakfast for 20 kids, I could find a way of tapping into the gratitude that I had 20 kids to feed. I adopted a bunch of kids. So, just so you wonder, I didn't give birth.
As I'm sitting between your legs.
Yeah, exactly. But I got to the point where I was just grateful that I got to feed these kids, some of whom had never gotten a good meal. Or I got the chance to make Christmas happen when some kids had never had Christmas.
Wow.
And so there's those kinds of work that don't sound like fun, but are absolutely necessary, and so we make them into a blessing.
I love that.
Reminds me of something Cody's told me that I repeat all the time, and it's if it's not fun, don't do it. If you must do it, make it fun.
Yes.
And Spirit, what I'm hearing you say is just like, if you have to do something, choosing the perspective of gratitude, choosing the perspective of being honored, or seeing it in some light that makes it worth your while.
Yes.
Even if it's a negative thing, just being like, I get to experience this because I'm in a body and I'm on earth right now.
Exactly. Yes. And I grew up most of the time paralyzed, and so I felt jealous of
The
people who got to work.
Wow.
Yes. And so now all of my caretakers, beloveds, try to get me not to work so much. But even if I know it's kind of stressing my body, I am just so excited to be able to work. Now, on the other hand,
I'll take that into account when I catch you doing the dishes again.
I know, exactly.
I'm normally like, get out of the kitchen.
Yes, you are, and I appreciate the intent so much, and yet I love cleanliness and order so much. My husband, who passed recently, he was terrified of work because when he woke up in the morning, there would already be a list of chores. And on the weekends, there would be, you have to work with your dad. But it was always, here's what you did wrong. And often being beaten for doing work. And so he went to Vietnam and was a combat photographer. And he said that was far easier. Doing that work was far easier than working for family that didn't appreciate your work. So we each have to look at how our work has been received. Does it make a difference? Does it make us feel good? Is it worth doing, or is it just busy work?
Yes.
And we could spend hours on busy work.
Go ahead.
Well, I just kind of wanted to open up something that was I'm curious about in conversation, and that is where did this concept of I have to go to work come from?
Good one.
And how can we just bring some light to that? Because there are so many people personally that I see that it's just an automatic thing that they don't even know who or what they're doing anymore.
Exactly.
It's because that's just who they are now. Because they do it so automatically.
You're right. And I grew up in East Tennessee in the Smoky Mountains, and all of my relatives had like between 9 and 12 kids. And it was because they needed more workers on the farm. That's how
one
they
way to do it.
survived. Yeah. So you were gonna say something.
Well, I'm just kind of feeling into what Tobias was asking his question, and a part of me feels like where it began doesn't matter, and trying to get another person to do this also doesn't matter. But the best that I've been able to do about the way the world is when it comes to work, everyone seems to have that. I've begun looking at job, this word that we all have embraced to some degree, and instead of looking at it as something that I dread or something that I have to go do or something like that, I look for my job to be my joy of being. So whatever I am
Good for you.
joyous in doing and being in that is where I gravitate to as far as like what I feel called to do in terms of a job. The other things often for me look like finding a perspective of service. Devotional service is not only a way to God, but it's a way to literally radically improve your life. If you are giving, even if you do it without the knowledge of love or God, you are still like you're in this vibration, a very high vibration. So finding service, but what I can do is for everyone is best remove the blocks inside of me that I have resisting to whatever work that may need to be done, and find a way to change my perspective to go into that work with joy.
Wow, good for you.
Joy
of being job. Yeah.
Such a perfect.
And if
that's
we were all working our jobs, our joy of beings, we would have a much different world. However, that's a bit of of a fantasy at this moment, because there is many things that have to be done. Not everyone, can just like get up out of whatever they're doing and only do whatever they're joyous about doing. I'm aware of that, but shifting the mindset is where it starts. I don't know about where it started way back when, but I know where it starts now, and it starts with each one of us.
Great.
Thank you, Cody.
I was I told some of you yesterday that when we had the kids, we would get up in the morning and we would have dream circle.
I love that.
And me too. And then we would say, what is the work that you want to do today, that you're called to do today? And we would just go around the circle. Do you want to do the dishes? Do you want to sweep the floor? Whatever. But some of the kids didn't want to work. And so we had, that's going to be work. We had an agreement in our family that people are naturally generous. And so if they don't want to work externally, it's because they need to do internal work. And so when it came time for cleanup work, the kids who didn't want to work, I would say, there's something inside you that needs to be worked on. And so they would go to the dining room table and sit there and write in their journal about what was going on, or draw pictures or whatever. And we had one little girl that when we first got her, when we went around the circle to find out what we wanted to do to work, she would go outside to an empty garbage can, climb inside the garbage can and put the roof,
Wow.
the lid over her, because she could
wanted
get
to-
in trouble.
Yeah,
And she
yeah,
had
yeah.
to hide. She couldn't believe she would be loved if she
do the
didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so our kids, I found, were incredibly naturally generous. That as soon as they had figured out what was going on internally, they wanted to be a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Naturally, we are a blessing, and of course, want to be
Yes.
a blessing.
And we want to be part of family. We want to
Yes.
make a difference.
Yes.
for them.
We want to belong.
Yeah.
And naturally, people feel good when they are productive.
Yeah.
We always want to be in a creative,
Yes.
moving, evolving state. And so if there's things that are blocking you from that, it's so important to really
Yeah.
acknowledge it.
Yeah, and
And
it's
not
not.
just punishing them for it, saying,
Exactly.
hey, go do the inner work that
Uh-huh.
obviously needs to be done. I think, especially for you back then, you were way ahead of your time.
Yeah.
Because we're talking, this is what, when the 6, 7,
This is
Yeah.
why people were having tons of kids for the farm.
Yeah, this is way ahead of the time back then, but it definitely is something that is so beneficial. I'm not going to take love away from you, but you have internal things that need clearing in order to be the generous self that I know you are. Saying that to a child, if I would have had that said to me, not that I need to be different, but that probably would have radically shifted some things in my life.
Yeah, of course.
I'm grateful for all of my life, so I don't
Yeah.
need that, but I can see how that would make a big impact.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for opening that up, Tobias.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something I want to recognize that I hadn't thought of before is that I think that our relationship with work could have a direct correlation to how our parents treated us with chores, and
Mhm.
yeah, that might be obvious, but I just kind of
No,
realized
it's
that.
true. And in fact, one of the reasons I like work was at a time I was 5 or 6 and I wasn't paralyzed then. And so we would get up in the morning and my mother would say, "What work do you want to do today?" And I would choose the hardest thing and the most creative thing I could find, and she would come help me and she'd say, "What about if we put this over here and we do that?" And then after that, she'd say, "You have done such a great job, you're free for the day."
Wow.
And very often I'd say, "No, give me another chore." Because I loved singing with her while we worked. I loved figuring
the process
out,
of
yes,
doing it.
yes, and being part of a team. And then I told some of you about Maria Montessori, who started the Montessori schools, and she said that the worst thing, the most damaging thing you can do to a child is give it a job where it will fail. And so your job is to find out how the child or the adult can succeed, and then they will want to be a blessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anything else we want to say?
I would like to spiral back around to the resting thing for just a moment,
Yeah.
because I had this vision of something that happens for me regularly, and I just feel to express how important it is to, especially during the busy days, find some time to just stop and lay down.
Yes.
And I mean, even if the mind continues doing its thing, there's been multiple moments, especially lately with all the recording that I've been doing and all of that, I've had moments where I literally come into the room, I just got back to the house, haven't done anything in the house, but I just lay on the bed for like 30 minutes and just not move.
So important.
That has been one of the most helpful things to embrace the motions of life with much more grace and less of like a burnt fuse feeling.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Wow, and do you feel you've been able to do that? Because I feel like the guilt is what gets in the way of that.
That is one of the biggest obstacles, and you really have
Guilt is a real thing.
have to focus on allowing. It's like, and this kind of visits the topic that we tried to record but didn't quite get it. This this
The sun melted
the sun
camera,
melted the camera. The aspect or perspective of looking at myself as not only an adult, 31-year or whatever, but also this child. And if like this child needed a nap, would I be like, no, you've got to go do the dishes first, or you've got to go, you should really go clean the kitchen, or you should really do, you know, your homework, or I don't even know, you know what I mean? Like I've been seeing myself from both of the perspectives, as a parent to my little child that I am, and as a child asking my parent, like, I just would like to rest right now, and being so gentle and so giving with myself in that way, not guilting myself, because if you guilt yourself, you've ruined it.
Exactly.
You've literally,
there's no point to rest.
You might as well get up and go do the thing.
Yeah.
You know, because if you've guilted yourself even in the slightest, energetically, you have prevented the restfulness that your body is needing. Your mind is like, it's like literally blocking the energy. But even if the mind can wander about dreaming on whatever you want to dream on about, as long as you're not resisting the rest, which is what guilt does, right? Guilt resists the rest of the moment, right? If we're in the moment where we're resting and we're like, no, we can't be resting, you're literally resisting the rest, and that isn't going to be restful for you. So that is a huge part of allowing yourself to actually rest, is giving yourself the space and not guilting yourself for it.
And for me, resting is about giving myself a period of time where I'm not responsible to answer all the phone calls, all the texts, all the people who show up. I just...
it doesn't have to only look like laying on the bed.
Yes. I don't even have to lie down on the bed. I just have to not be responsible for a while. And that's really good.
You're responsible for many people to some degree. So that makes total sense.
I did want to say that here at the Radiance Center, there's so much to do. We talk about permaculture, not only of the land, but permaculture of the heart and permaculture of the mind and the soul, so everything stays in balance. So often, since I founded the Radiance Center, people want to impress me with how much work they're doing. They want to come and say, I did this and this and this. Yeah.
In the beginning, we were working so hard.
I know, and
that was me. Look at me, Spirit, look what I did.
Exactly. And instead, I very often will say to people, I don't want you to work anymore today or this week. I want to see, have you prayed? Have you had a date? Have you made yourself a special meal? Have you taken time just for yourself? Because the Radiance Center wants to teach balance of all those things. And sometimes it's harder work to take a break.
True.
If all workplaces and bosses treated their employees like that, they'd be amazed at how much more work actually got done.
Exactly.
For real.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And some people, I won't mention any names, when they first came, they were getting over intense trauma. And so I asked that person, who happens to be named Cody.
No names.
No names, but I'll be honest.
I asked him to not be responsible for doing anything until he had time just to go back and deal with that trauma. Because then I knew he would be much more useful to himself and to all of us after he'd cleaned out the old stuff.
The most important work, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Truly. Because it affects all the other work. Because I was bitter and angry, and I spent many days literally doing nothing. And everyone around the community was like,
"Why
hey man, you're doing nothing."
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, I'm actually doing something really important for myself. And I knew that. That's why I thank you for giving me the space, encouraging me to do that.
Yeah.
And also just reminding me, like, yes, this is the work. Because now I feel I do everything I do with relative joy. I mean, like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
super keen on doing the sewage stuff, you know, but when I have to, it's all right.
Yeah,
You did, yeah. So you were doing internal cleanup,
Right,
like my
right.
kids did.
I was at that
Internal sewage.
I was at that dinner
Internal
table for a
sewage.
while. I had a lot to clear out.
Yeah. And
Oh.
still, sometimes it'll just rise up in Cody.
Yep. The other day, I didn't get out of bed until like 2:30 when I had to make dinner for Sunday. I was like, oh, I better go do the thing.
Yeah. But it's worth it for me to teach the world to stay in balance with our work on every level.
Yes.
Inner and outer.
Yeah.
So quickly, I mean, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on
It also
this.
doesn't have to be quick.
Oh,
Take your
sorry.
time.
Habit.
Aw.
I want to like open up the conversation to what a people who come from a story that is work to survive, and that's the only way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of, you know,
What's the question?
So how can we help people that come from a story that the only way to work is, you know, like the only way to survive is through work.
Selling your
work.
soul,
Yes.
even if that's necessary. And we're not here to even pretend that there aren't groups of people in a reality where their survival does depend on work,
Exactly.
as long as they believe that.
Yeah.
Yes, but some of us are to the point where that's just an old habit. And it's a way of keeping people from being upset with us, or it's a way of proving our worth. And so it's our job now to say, no, the universe takes care. If we're doing what we're meant to be doing.
So
Yeah.
faith in allowing the universe.
Exactly.
And you know, you can even go work at a gas station for a while. It doesn't matter. It matters if you do it with resentment and fear versus saying, oh, right now I'd really like to make some money and I'm not quite sure how to allow it yet. So I'm going to work at this gas station and it's going to teach me something I need to learn. You know, so it's not like we've lost our path if we go work a job.
Right.
But we also keep practicing allowing the universe to be so abundant.
Faith. Yeah, I would say it's faith.
Yeah.
Because I definitely have not had any money while I've been unemployed, but I found I've still had everything I need.
I know, because look, you've had your rent paid, you've had food,
I've always been fed so well.
you've had everything.
Making better
I'm
breads.
so okay.
Making good
I'm more than
banana
okay.
bread.
Yeah. And so it's been beautiful this last few months not working and what I already shared about what I've learned, but also just rewiring my brain to understand that abundance is not financial in any means. It's exactly the inner things that we've been speaking about, and
Not blocking
the
the
and
natural
that faith,
abundance.
that practice of faith has brought so much abundance.
Go ahead.
Well, I feel like that pretty much answers your question here, Tobias. There's not a lot that can be done for others if
they're
the
in
person, if whoever is in question doesn't want to change their mindset. If they're not ready to do their own work, it's not really even about the other.
Right, and it's
And
not a
that might
put
not
down
be-
of them for being there.
Exactly, it's not,
Yeah.
and it might not be the most popular opinion because I know, especially in today's day and age, everyone, you know, it is about helping others, but how we best help others is by living the example instead of preaching it to them, trying to teach it to them, trying to show them the way, be the way. And those who are ready, they see it. They will gravitate to it. They are attracted to it. That's the law of the universe.
Yeah.
So embodying that which literally Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Embodying that as your life and as your service will affect exactly the amount of people it's meant to affect. But trying to help others, I feel like, is a misplaced
I agree.
of energy. Help thyself in the way that's not it's so not selfish when we begin to help ourselves in these ways, in the ways of like clearing our traumas and learning how to live in line with our highest passion and our highest joy. These things are completely selfless, if you will, because they benefit all beings. They benefit all beings. When you are oozing and radiating because you have come to the place inside that is love, then every being who you come across is touched. They see it, they witness it, they go, oh, what's this? How can, and then when someone asks you, how can I help? How can I change? That's when they have decided inside of themselves that they are ready for the change.
And you can be living proof that it's possible.
Exactly.
That's part of the job of the Radiance Center.
Exactly.
And I'll give you an extreme example, which you guys know, that at one point we had like 20-something kids, and we couldn't leave them because they were so suicidal and homicidal and hurt themselves and burn themselves and all that, and so we could never go away to work a job. And so I knew, and we were not at that point receiving any money for them. And at that point I knew what I was going to feed them for breakfast because I had a big bag of oatmeal. And then I would have no idea most days what we were going to feed them for lunch or dinner. And there was not a single day in 22 years that a truck didn't pull up with all these vegetables and fruits and grains, or a big check would come in the mail, or the food bank would call and say, hey, we have 20 pounds of chicken. It's time. But it always worked, not because we were doing anything correctly. It's just that we were so in love with the kids and we knew that was our job.
That's alignment.
Yeah, just alignment with what you're supposed to be doing. That's a great phrase there, is that whatever work you do, it's so much more effective if it's in alignment with what your soul is learning and what you're doing.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Was there a moment that you needed to, like, that you questioned? You're like, I don't know where the food's gonna come, but I'm gonna let it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but I think people were so in awe of what we were doing that they would just call up and say, do you have dinner? Or whatever. And so pretty soon.
No doubt there's God's hand involved in that.
Yeah, exactly. And at one point, and am I proud of this? Probably not. But at certain points we'd go to the grocery store and write a check and we knew it would bounce. And the checks kept not bouncing. And finally my husband called up and said, I know that this check was overwritten. And the guy said, oh, we know, but you always pay in the long run from the bank. And you're okay, don't worry.
Wow.
You know, so there was always the whole universe wanting to support loving the kids.
Of course.
That's part of, I think, the alchemist, right? The universe conspires
Yes.
with you, not against you. With
exactly.
Exactly. And that's a whole mindset shift too.
You, right?
Yeah. And so just practice, and when you do sell your soul, when you do something that didn't make you happy, don't take love away from yourself.
Yes.
Just come back to self-compassion, kindness.
Exactly. That's what it always comes back to.
Yeah, exactly.
It's because that's where it all comes from.
Yeah, I think we're done. Thank you so much for listening.
I love you guys.
I love you.
Oh no!
Not again.
Just kidding.